We got a couple days next week. They're going to be 80. Couple days next week, 80.
Who just came in, Bill? Was it Larry?
Gary.
Good morning. This is Tom, and this is Tom's Radio Room Show. And we're going to revisit this Tecsun PL-880. I was really hoping this would be a fantastic radio. It came out a couple years ago. It's one of the few new radios on the market in this class. There's a lot of inexpensive radios, less than $20 radios, which don't do a very good job of shortwave. They do an okay job of AM and FM, but not a very good job of shortwave. And I thought this was going to be, something finally on the market that would just replace all of these older radios, such as the Sony portable radios. I'm talking about portable radios, and some of their earlier Tecsun radios, and just do a fantastic job. And it had so much potential. But unfortunately, it was put on the market before it was finished. And there were a few minor firmware upgrades to fix some of the problems. But then they just kind of quit. Tecsun did, or whoever was putting this together. And some of the more outstanding problems were never fixed. And one of them was single sideband, which is what you were listening to a few minutes ago. And although it tunes single sideband, and it does a pretty good job of tuning it, the audio is kind of weird. It changes, not just based on the signal level, but it's like it's out there trying to decode the single sideband, and it's struggling and just doesn't do it perfect. That's the thing. It doesn't do it perfect. I was hoping this would be a perfect radio. Let me go back and turn the volume back up here and let you listen for a few seconds.
Oh, boy, what a combo. Who's Cherokee? Yeah, but who's Cherokee in your family?
Okay, I don't know if you can notice it, but it's doing a pretty good job of decoding the single sideband conversation on an amateur radio band of 80 meters. But the voice, that one person that was pretty strong, you could tell, or at least I could tell, the voice was changing, I'll say in pitch. It was almost like when you detune or not quite tune on a single sideband station, the pitch of the person's voice is off. Let me see if I can illustrate this. I'm going to detune this.
Oh, yeah, he's an Indian, and Don is too.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, he had a Indian princess.
They had an Indian girlfriend. Both Gordons look that way.
See, it's actually still doing a pretty good job since I've tuned off of it. And apparently, I say apparently because I don't know, apparently it's trying to track that same single sideband signal and keep it tuned in. And by doing that, even when you tune, again, I'm speculating here, even when you tune the radio so it's right on the correct frequency, it's still kind of searching around. That's the way it appears to be. But it's not bad. Now, I've been bad-mouthing the single sideband capability of this radio. And I think I was maybe too critical because I expected so much out of this radio. I mean, I have older radios, 10 years old, say, like some Sony radios, that when you tune in a single sideband station and you finally get it tuned in properly, it will just block right on there You don't get this kind of distortion in the audio. This radio doesn't do that. Like I say, it does a pretty good job. It's almost like some of my real old radios, my big tube radios, which have single sideband, and because they're using vacuum tubes and they're using a lot of discrete components, they tend to drift as those components warm up. Well, that's what this seems to do, although it's not. That's most likely not the case because it's all modern electronics. No tubes in this thing. All very surface mount resistors that don't drift and stuff like that. So that's not the problem. It's the software, because this whole radio is controlled by software that's on that's run in a microcontroller chip that's in this radio that does all these functions that used to be done by hardware, including tracking single sideband. And so that software is what's trying to keep up with that single sideband signal. And the original one, I had one of the original ones of these, and the single sideband was terrible. It would not stay on track. They changed the software, or it's called firmware. They changed the firmware in my newer one, although this one is still not, it's still about a year and a half old, so it's not the newest one. They've helped it. They improved it tremendously. It was actually usable. I don't know, and I haven't heard any reports lately on if they made any more changes, because what they did is you used to be able to look at a number that you could get displayed up on this display that would tell you the firmware revision number. And I think it was like 8819 and 8820. There's the two versions I had. Because they had so much confusion and controversy about the firmware changes, and people were returning, they would find out, oh, there's a new one, there's a new version. They would try to return their old one, which is what I did, and get the latest version. So what they did after 8820, they stopped changing that number. So people couldn't look at that number and go, ooh, I heard there's an 8821 and I've got an 8820, I want a newer one. So they stopped doing it. It's kind of cheesy of them, but be that as it is, it is. But this radio does a good job. The sound quality when you're listening to international broadcasts on AM is fantastic. Now, right now, I'm in my workshop. It's, what time is it? It's about 6 a.m. in the morning here in Florida. And so I should be able to receive stations over in Asia and local stations such as the shortwave amateur radio band on 80 meters. I tried, before I started recording, I tried using the built-in telescopic antenna, and I could barely hear these gentlemen that I'm hearing right now. They are in the southern part of the southeast part of the United States, so they're not too far away. So I had to hook up this external antenna. This is the MFJ 31-foot vertical antenna, and it came in clear as a bell. So let's just take a look at some of the international broadcast frequencies. I'll get out of single sideband mode first.
I think this will be one of those early days.
Okay, I'm back into normal, and let me turn the volume down for a second. Let's see if WWV is coming in. 5 megahertz. About a week. Pretty clear. Now, like I say, this radio does an excellent job. I'm totally sold on its AM capability. Does an excellent job on AM. It has multiple filters. We can just go through them real quickly here. It's on a 5 kilohertz filter right now. This is a 9, 5, 3.5, 2.3, and then back up. When you push this button, the filter will change and it will go up, and then reach the maximum. It will come back down to the minimum and then go back up. That cycles through the various filters you can use. Let's see what we're on right now. We're on 3.5. There's 5. So it's got a lot of filters there that you can choose from. Unlike other radios, earlier model radios, it had maybe 2, and sometimes if you're lucky you got 3. This has got like 4, I believe, on AM. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, it's got 4. It goes from 2.3 kilohertz to 9. Let's go back to 9. What the heck? 5's a good one. 5's a good one. 4, listening to this. I'm not listening to music, so 5's good. Let's try 10 megahertz. Not too good yet. I don't hear anything, as a matter of fact. A little early for 10 megahertz to come in good here in Florida. Let's see if we can get channel radio. I think it's 9750, am I right? 9750. You know, I don't know what's happened. I have to do a little research, but 9750, which should be China radio, unless my memory's gone bad, which it could be, I haven't been able to get lately. So I don't know what that's about. I got to check into that. Let's try 9850. Nothing there. Just kind of peruse around here. That band is kind of dead. Okay, there it is. Isn't that what I plugged in?
Hospital safety found there was inadequate oversight by the health department, calling for an overhaul of the system. Catherine Booth of Morris Blackburn Lawyers represents many of the affected families. She welcomed a recommendation that
That's coming in.
should have to
Booming it.
for any harm.
So often patients don't receive an apology.
The government has accepted all of the review's 179 recommendations in principle.
A former Catholic priest already convicted of more than 24 child sex offences won't be returning to jail despite him pleading guilty.
Yeah, that's Radio Australia, and it's booming in. Let me just disconnect the external antenna and see what it does. More noise because, I've got noise in my shop here, but still strong. Get the antenna back up. Now that's one thing, and I've said this many times, is it's best to have an external antenna. You can see how much difference that made. Let me turn it back up.
Donald Trump has told supporters he's the victim of a vicious campaign to stop him winning the U.S. presidency.
Huge difference. I mean, some less expensive radios. This radio is about $150. Some less expensive radios, you will see, or you will notice, or whatever the word should be, that if you are using a built-in antenna, and this particular antenna that's on this radio is fairly long. It's about 3 foot long, so it's fairly long. But you will see that using an external antenna makes a world of difference, just a huge difference. Even if it's just a piece of wire that, say, 30 or 40 feet long. And the other key thing is to bring that antenna in with shielded cable, coax cable. so that the noise that's in your room or office or house is not getting in. And that's what's happening when I do this. That's what's happening on this antenna, is the noise in this room, my computers, my lights, they are all generating RF noise, and that's coming right into this antenna because this antenna is local to this room. With here, of course, the antenna is 30 feet in the air. That's one thing. Plus, I'm using shielded cable. And I've showed in previous shows where I've got some long wire antennas strung out in my yard, and they do a pretty darn good job too compared to an external antenna. So anyway, I don't want to harp on that anymore. So what I was going to do in revisiting this is show that on AM, this radio, the Tecsun PL-880, does an excellent job on shortwave. If you want to listen to single sideband, you want to listen to amateur radio stations or anything that's on single sideband, it does a fairly good job. It's not terrible. If you get the newer firmware, but it's to put it in a single word, it's disappointing. I thought this radio would do so much better. So anyway, that's the revisit of this radio. Like I say, I really like this radio, but it just doesn't do a good job of single sideband. So anyway, if you enjoyed the show, please give me a thumbs up. What I'm doing is I'm going back and revisiting radios that I've reviewed. Unfortunately, there are not that many new radios, shortwave radios, on the market. There's the PL-680, which I still haven't got my hands on, but I may go with a dealer that I'm not familiar with, that's on the internet that sells these at a pretty good, the 680, they sell a 680 at a pretty good price. I may go with them. I like to get my radios from Amazon because they have an absolute wonderful return policy. I have gotten 3 or 4 out of the hundreds of radios I bought that turned out to be bad. They just were, they didn't work right. And it wasn't just the radio design, that was that particular radio. And, I just get a return slip. I put it on the outside of the box. I take it to UPS. Boom, done. I get a reply. I get a refund in the form of a credit. So anyway, if you enjoyed the show, please give me a thumbs up. Thanks for watching and have a great day. I'm back. Bye-bye.